Good afternoon, sweet ladies, and thank you for joining us in Far Above Rubies today. I'm so glad that each and every single one of you are here. Today's story that we are going to talk about from the life of Jesus is the story of the rich young ruler. And your reading challenge for this story will be Mark chapter 10, verses 17 through 31. Now, many of you are familiar with this story, but I'll give you a quick glimpse at it just for those who aren't, okay? So the story of the rich young ruler is simply this. There was a man that came to Jesus and he says, Lord, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus looked at him and began to tell him some of the commands of the Old Testament about how we live our lives for the Lord. And the young man says, I've done all of those things since I was a child, so that's wonderful. And Jesus looks back at him and he says, but there's one more thing that you haven't done. And he says to the rich young man, he says, you need to go and sell all of your possessions and come and follow me. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that Jesus didn't ask every single person that followed him to sell all of their earthly possessions and follow him. So why was this something that was necessary for the rich young ruler? Jesus knows our hearts. He knows our thoughts. He knows us more deeply than we could possibly imagine. He created us. And he knows what stands between you and being sold out for him. You and being completely and totally his. What stands between you and intimacy with him. What stands between you and giving him all of yourself? He knows. And for that rich young man, it was his possessions. It was his money. It was his nice house and his great car and his fancy suits. That's what it was for the rich young ruler. That's what stood between him and giving all that he had, surrendering. And I'm talking about all that he had of himself to the Lord. Our flesh, our carnality, is anti the Spirit of God. We were born in sin, shapen in iniquity. We naturally go against the grain of the Spirit of the Lord. It is when we submit ourselves, when we submit our desires, when we submit our plans, our thoughts, our dreams, our relationships, our possessions to the Spirit of the Lord, that intimacy with him occurs. Now, God knows you. He knows me. And he knows what stands between me and intimacy with him. For some of us ladies, maybe it's vanity. Maybe it's immodesty. Maybe it's pride. For some of us, maybe it is our possessions. Maybe it's our money and we want to hang on to it. Whatever it is that stands between us and being fully submitted to the Spirit of God, he will ask us to sacrifice that. For me, you know what? There are some things that don't really matter to me that might matter to you. And God's not going to ask me to submit those things to him, to sacrifice those things to him, because they don't matter to me. They don't cost me anything in here. If God asked me to give up, if God asked me to give up cooking for a week, if he asked me to give up cleaning the toilets for a week, I'd be like, whoa, okay, the Lord asked me to give it up, so I got to do it. No big deal, right? But if the Lord asks me to give up cookies for a week, if he asks me to give up looking in a mirror for a week, I'm not a vain person, but if he asked me to give up looking in a mirror for a week, I might be like, but Lord, what if my hair looks a little off kilter whenever I come to these ladies, right? If he asked me to give up cookies, I'd probably cry. I have fasted sweets before. It's hard. He knows what cost you in here. He knows what's hard for you to lay down at his feet. And he will require it of you for true intimacy in your walk with him. So today I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to pray and search your heart. Ask God to search your heart and ask Him, what is the area that stands between me and intimacy with you? And I want you to ask Him to help you to lay it at His feet. If it's vanity, He might ask you to not make your hair quite so big or put things in your hair, while for another lady, that might not mean anything to her and may be easy for her to give up. If it's possessions, He might ask you to gift some of your finer things to less fortunate women in your church this Christmas. If it's your money itself, He's going to ask you to be a giver. He's going to put things in your heart to test you and see, can she give to this cause? Can she give to her church? Whatever it is, if it's modesty that you struggle with, and I mean in every sense of the word, being modest in your attitude, in your spirit, in your clothing, if that's what you struggle with, He's going to require it of you. Okay? Pray, seek Him, ask Him to show you what it is that stands between you and following Him with everything that you are. Go read Mark chapter 10, verses 17 through 31. Search your heart. Ask the Lord to search your heart. I am so glad that each of you are here. I hope you are blessed by these devotionals. If no one has told you lately, you are loved. You are cherished. You are valuable, my friend. You have worth. And that worth is so far above rubies. Thank you for being here today, and I will see you all tomorrow. God bless you.